A night that changed everything. The party started like any other. Everyone was laughing, drinking, and talking about life. My husband, John, was always the funny one in the group. He told jokes, and everyone laughed loudly. I sat with the wives, talking about work, family, and little things. The night felt normal, but deep inside, I could feel something strange. There was a tension in the air, something I couldn't explain. It was like everyone was waiting for something to happen. As more drinks were poured, the conversations became more daring. I noticed John exchanging glances with his friends, Kevin, Mike, and Tom. They whispered and smiled in a way that made me feel uneasy. But I told myself I was imagining things. Then, Susan, Kevin's wife, made a joke. She laughed and said, "What if we swapped partners for the night?" At first, everyone laughed, thinking it was just a silly joke. But then, silence filled the room. I felt my heart beat faster. John looked at me with a playful smile and said, "Why not? We're all friends, right?" The others laughed again, but this time, the idea stayed in the air. I forced myself to smile, pretending it was nothing serious. But deep inside, I felt scared. Was this really happening? Before I knew it, agreements were being made as if it was just another party game. John was the first to move. He walked off with Susan, leaving me standing there, confused. Mike, John's best friend, stood next to me, looking just as nervous. We had always been friendly, but this was different. He tried to joke, but it didn't help. We both knew what was about to happen, and it was nothing like anything we had ever done before. We moved to a quieter part of the house. Sitting with Mike, I felt a strange mix of emotions, curiosity, excitement, and fear. As we talked, I realized something surprising. I was opening up to him in a way I never had before. We spoke about deep things, things I had never shared with anyone. Suddenly, he didn't feel like just John's friend. He felt like someone who understood me. Across the room, I could see John and Susan. They were laughing and talking like old friends. Were they feeling what I was feeling? Was John as conflicted as I was? What started as a simple game was quickly turning into something more serious. As the minutes passed, I started to relax, but that only made me feel more unsettled. Could I really go through with this? Would things ever be the same after tonight? I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. Just as I was starting to think I had control over my emotions, something unexpected happened. Susan suddenly burst into tears and ran out of the room. Everyone stopped talking. The laughter disappeared. The fun, carefree energy was gone in an instant. John quickly followed Susan, leaving me alone with Mike. My heart started to race. What had just happened? The room became silent. The air felt heavy, filled with tension and unspoken fears. Kevin turned to Tom, his face angry. "I knew it," he shouted. "You've been flirting with my wife for a long time, haven't you?" Tom looked shocked. "What are you talking about?" he asked, but Kevin wasn't listening. He was too angry. What was supposed to be a fun experiment had turned into something ugly. Secrets were coming out. Jealousy, pain, and old grudges filled the air. Mike looked at me, his earlier confidence gone. "Maybe this wasn't such a good idea," he said softly. For the first time that night, I completely agreed. The mood had changed. The party had turned into something no one could control. I looked around the room. Everyone was feeling it now. The excitement was gone, replaced by doubt and regret. When John and Susan returned, they both looked shaken. John avoided my eyes, and I knew something had changed between us. The rest of the night felt slow and heavy. One by one, the couples left. No one said much. We all knew things would never be the same. John and I walked to our car in silence. The weight in my chest grew heavier. I had so many questions, but I wasn't ready to ask them. Finally, I whispered, "Do you regret it?" I wasn't sure what answer I wanted. John didn't look at me. After a long pause, he shook his head. "No, but I think things are going to be different now." His words scared me. The drive home was silent. We were both lost in our own thoughts. As we pulled into the driveway, John reached for my hand. "We'll talk about it tomorrow," he said softly. I nodded, but I wasn't sure I wanted to talk. I wasn't sure I even wanted to know what he was thinking. When we got inside, John went upstairs. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the glass. The house felt different. It didn't feel like home. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the water. My mind replayed everything. Mike's gentle touch. The way we laughed. The way John disappeared with Susan. I had tried to tell myself it was all just fun, but now, it didn't feel that way anymore. I felt lost. Alone. The night had changed something inside me, and I didn't know how to fix it. Minutes passed, maybe even hours. Finally, I heard John coming downstairs. He stood in the doorway, watching me. His face was hard to read. Was he angry, guilty, confused? He sat down across from me, but neither of us spoke at first. The silence between us felt thick, almost suffocating. I took a deep breath and finally said, "What now?" My voice was quiet, unsure. John looked down at his hands, then back up at me. "I don't know," he admitted. "I thought it would be different." I frowned. "Different how?" He hesitated. "I thought it would be easy. Just a game. No strings attached." His voice trailed off. He rubbed his forehead like he was trying to make sense of it all. "But it wasn't," I said, finishing the sentence for him. I understood exactly what he meant. The whole night had been one big mistake. John nodded. "I didn't expect to feel like this afterward. I thought we'd just go back to normal." I sighed. "Can we?" John looked frustrated, like he wanted to fix things but didn't know how. "I don't know," he said again. We sat there, lost in thought. It had been exciting at first. But now, I felt nothing but confusion. "Did you enjoy it?" John finally asked, his voice low. He couldn't meet my eyes. I hesitated. How could I answer that? "I don't know," I said finally. "It wasn't what I thought it would be." John nodded, his jaw clenched. "Do you think this will change us?" The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I didn't want to answer, but I knew the truth. "I think it already has," I whispered. John didn't respond. He just looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Regret, fear, understanding, maybe all three. "I thought I'd be okay with it," he admitted. "But seeing you with Mike," he didn't finish the sentence, but I knew exactly what he meant. I had felt the same thing when I saw him with Susan. It was a pain I hadn't expected. I sighed, my heart heavy. "I don't want to lose you, John." His eyes softened. "Me neither." For the first time that night, I felt a little hope. Maybe we could fix this. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. It wouldn't be easy, but I wanted to try. "We'll figure it out," John said, taking my hand. I squeezed it tightly. "Yeah," I agreed. "We will." Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more videos on my YouTube channel.